Hey folks, in this interview, I'm talking to Mr. Robert Evans about The Pixel Show. This is TWiP. Hey folks, welcome back to TWiP. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. I'm here with one of my longest and oldest friends, Mr. Robert Evans. I've known Robert since, I want to say Lincoln was in office or something. Robert and I are going to be talking about one of his newest projects that he's working on. It's called The Pixel Show. But we're also going to be talking about we're going to do a touch-in on wedding photography in general. Robert is a sort of a high-end boutique wedding photographer who kind of knows what's going on in the industry. So I wanted to take this opportunity to dive into his brain to get his feeling on where the industry is going. Where has it gone in the last 5 years? Is it positive, negative, sideways, or what? So Robert Evans, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, good to see you again. We haven't talked in a long time.
I know, you've been busy
buying back on TWiP,
buying real estate and running around the country and all that. We used to hang out a lot when you were living in LA, down in SoCal. Now you're where are you at? You're Midwest somewhere, right?
Yeah, Minnesota.
Nice. You got the accent yet?
No, I just make fun of it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, cool, man. So like I alluded to, you're a wedding photographer. And in the interviews that I've done with you before, I always tell people that, you know more about photography and lighting and composition and all that stuff than most people will ever know, right? Because you've been doing it for so long and you know your way around a camera, you know your way around a wedding, and you nail it every time, which is why you're at the level that you're at. Starting with this, just sort of a state of the union of wedding photography, right, and how people are doing. What do you think? Like right now, we've more tools than we've ever had before, both on the lens side, the camera body side, lighting, online educational resources, software, Capture One, Lightroom. It just goes on and on and on. It's an endless list. Has photography advanced at the same pace as the tools?
I guess in my personal opinion, I think it's digressed a little bit in that, and thank you for the nice compliments in the opening. I mean, I think I have been doing it a long time. I'm in my 30th year, believe it or not.
Wow.
And I know I'm good at what I do, but there's a lot of talented photographers out there. But I also think there's a lot of people missing the boat, because a lot of the photography and the stuff that I see online, according to the wedding industry or within the industry, kind of like, in my opinion, it's realized in my opinion, so send me the hate mail, not Frederick.
Thank you.
That it all kind of looks the same. There's a lot of as if, and I get it, like new photographers, then they look and what is everyone else doing? Okay, I'm going to do that. But as if they bought, Weddings for Dummies 101 book and they're like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And I don't want to bash on those people, but what I think it's missing, honestly, is people really just shooting from the heart and shooting how they see it and what they want, and not necessarily copying or emulating what others are doing. There's just a whole lot of that, wide angle, middle of the field, available light, no emotion. They're not telling a story, and I'm painting with a broad brush, but that's kind of me, and I'm not saying I'm the best. Yes, I've done some great things, and there's photographers out there that, of course, you're going to like better than my work, just because we're all individuals and we have a different vision of what we like and what we don't like. And I get that. Couples are the same way. But I just really think that's the one thing that's missing is, I always, when I teach and talk and, do that stuff, I'm like, I really encourage people to shoot from the heart and to shoot what they want. I've always said that the photographer's fingerprint, your fingerprint, is just as unique as your eye, or your eye is just as unique as your fingerprint. No two are the same. So no two photographers' personalities are the same. No two photographers' fingerprints are the same, and no two photographers' eyes are the same. But you have to combine those three things and go out and shoot what you want and the way you see it. A lot of times if I'm talking about weddings, I tell my couples, I shoot 90% of your wedding for me, meaning that if I'm excited at the end of the day about the photographs that I've taken at their wedding. Of course, as long as I listened to what they wanted and make sure that I got the shots that were important to them, no matter how maybe silly I think that picture is or whatever, I would never let my couples know that. I will do it, but I'll put my images that I'm excited about on my blog or my portfolio, but I made my bride happy.
Yeah.
But you have to go out and shoot for yourself as well as your client. You can't just go out and shoot for the client and shoot what you think the client wants, or you're ultimately going to not love photography. And I know there's a lot of burnout that happens in this industry, especially within weddings.
Yeah, because that's what Steve Jobs used to say, right? You got to give them, they don't know what they need, right? And I would assume that when brides approach you, this is hopefully their first wedding, right? And they don't know what the process is, so they're looking to you as the authority in weddings. But let me spin it this way and ask you the question of, if there's this sort of dilution or homogeny going on in the wedding photography industry, where things are starting to look similar and people are copying other people and just doing the shot list and delivering that to the bride, what's the solution to that? Because you may just say, like you said, your eye is a footprint or your eye is a fingerprint, shoot your own stuff. But at the same time, when you're shooting a wedding and they're paying you $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 or whatever, I would guess, and I'm not a wedding photographer, but I would guess the inclination is to play it safe and give them, well, they're expecting these 20 shots. I'm going to give them these 20 shots and build the book and get my check and, and not be worried about paying my rent. What do you say to those folks that are like, I could be creative, but that's risky. I'd rather just, be basic.
Right. Well, I'm not disagreeing with that. Like, I think you do have to do that. You have to go back to please your client. Yes. But you need, if you want to break out of that mold and you want to get away from just shooting the 20 shots, you have to shoot for yourself. You have to do something that fulfills your creativity or your creative juices or whatever you want to call it. And that's where you actually can find your style or find your own vision. Yeah. Yes, I listen to my clients and I shoot the stuff that's, that may not excite me, but I do it because I have to. But then I make sure that I'm shooting for myself and I'm listening to that little voice inside that's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if he did this? Which years and years ago, like, I never listened to that voice. And it's when I started listening to it where I sort of like, oh my gosh, like, I have to, like, I could give you I know the wedding that I shot. This was back in the day. I was still shooting Hasselblad, camera on a tripod, and there was a trampoline in the corner of the yard, and I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if I could get them to jump on the trampoline? But that little voice is like, oh, they're going to say no. Don't even ask. No, it's not worth your time. And I had been doing that to myself. I'd think these little things, or they'd pop into my head. And I was like, no. I said, you know what? The worst she can say is no. And so I asked, and she agreed. And their personalities were very interesting because she was like the timid, shy one, and he was kind of like this, looked like he was in a punk band, had the spiky white hair. Mm-hmm. And so they got up on the trampoline and they started jumping, and they were just sort of bouncing like without their feet. They were moving the tramp. And I was like, no, get up off the trampoline. So I got 3 shots off. I'm shooting Hasselblad. And the last shot that I got, she's actually up high and he's on his way down, and she's like laughing and elated, and he looks scared. And the interesting part about the shot, it's black and white or sepia. The interesting part about the shot is like it's an opposite of their personalities too. Like she looks happy and excited about it, not the conservative bride that I thought that she was. And he looks kind of nervous and scared, which is opposite of his personality. But that is the moment in my career where I was like, oh my gosh, I got this really cool, amazing shot that I was excited about, the one shot all day. Like if I get nothing else, like I got this cool shot that's different. And, I learned that's a life lesson, right? You have to ask, because the worst they can say is no.
It's like a treasure hunter on the beach finding a watch, right? You have that same feeling of, look at what I did, look at what I found, and what I'm bringing back. This is, But how do you account for, like, for the photographers that are out there, are not at your level yet, and they're like, okay, I want to get to Robert Evans level. I want to be shooting celebrities. I want to, be charging those dollars for my weddings. How do they get there? Is it just, okay, at this next wedding, I'm going to think outside the box on one shot, and I listened to the Robert Evans interview. I'm going to do my trampoline shot at this wedding, and then everything else is going to be on the list. And the next wedding after that, maybe I'll do 2 trampoline shots.
Again, I think it just goes back to like, they don't have to do the trampoline shot, right? I mean, obviously they could do it their own way. I just described the photo. They haven't seen it. So they can use their imagination. But I mean, I think that's part of the key is like, use your own imagination, use your own creativity, use your own like intuition, or like, hey, it would be cool if I did that. Like, every photographer has their own vision, but I just really think it's important to implement that vision at the wedding. Like, yes, again, do what the client wants, do your safe things, shoot your family photos. We have to do those things. But then, like, I know for me, and I'm probably most photographers, I work in the moment. So the inspiration comes to me based on, it could be just a reaction or an expression that I saw to my couples. It could be the way the light, beam of light of shaft is coming through the barn and lighting up the dust, and like, oh my gosh, if I put her over there, that would be so cool. Or, whatever that it is, that piece of architecture or furniture or whatever, like I see that portrait, and I truly believe that was the gift I was given, of the way I see it. Right. But as photographers, everybody should have, that their own vision. So it's just a matter of just doing it, like, not necessarily trying to be different, but just be yourself and shoot the way you want to, what you want to see. And I think then as you try those things and you start to sort of see or develop a style, like, oh, I like to, like, one of the things I like to do in my work, and I don't always do it when it's appropriate, is like use motion blur, movement. Mm-hmm. To sort of enhance that picture just a little bit more and make it interesting. So I find that's one thing that I really like to do when I can do it. I sort of do like that shock value. So like what I just described to you, but that's not at every wedding. It's only when it presents itself to me and I think, oh, well, that would be cool if I got them to do this. But I don't go after that at each time. Something that's really simple that I do is I love to grandparents. When there's grandparents at the wedding, I know because I lost my grandfather, when I was probably 24, and how important he was to me. And, he taught me to fish and, all those things. And you hear those stories all the time. Like, I shoot couples' weddings, and, if the grandparents were there, maybe 6 months later, a year later, a month later, the grandparents pass. Mm-hmm. And so I always make an attempt beyond the obvious portrait of shooting bride with grandma, couple with grandma, is to really capture great images with the grandparents.
Yeah, because those are the ones that end up being priceless. And,
look at the guy. This is an example. Wait, this side. That's my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
I took that portrait. It hangs over my desk. Let me keep the camera still. It hangs over my desk. And, he's always been important. He was an artist, so he's painting a picture. But, he was important to me. So that's one thing that I do at weddings. I really try to walk around and I really try to make an effort to make sure that I get a good grandparent photo. I mean, it's just little things. It's like what you want to do.
Yeah. How is this stuff changing though, right? So there's a, we go back to that shot list, like you said, where people are just walking down the list and doing the same old stuff that everybody else is doing because it's safe. Where does that evolve to? Like at your level, you're doing new and interesting things, but in, we're in 2019, as we record this, moving into 2020, in 2030, are wedding photos going to look the same as they do now, or are we going to have a whole new list? And because people are trying new things and new people are coming in, what do you think about that?
Well, hopefully. I realize, I've been doing it for 30 years and I try to keep the, I don't want to be like the old, I walk 2 miles in the snow type of thing. But
in my day,
right. But I think, technology obviously is going to bring different things, but we saw that even through my era. I remember when people used like the star filter and double exposure and all those things, which was
parents
cool
in the clouds looking down at the bride.
Right. It was new and different. It was a little bit cheesy, and some of those things, like vintage photography, we went through that. I was like so happy to get rid of that because vintage was horrible in my opinion. But like, I think the other thing for me too is like, I'm a storyteller. I want to tell a story. I want to shoot a wedding like, of photojournalists. Now, with that said, I'm not pure PJ or photojournalism. It's one aspect of the day, and it's sort of like, for me, like, what can I capture? What emotion, what story can I tell through a moment? But yes, I still do family pictures. I still, quote unquote, pose people. I don't just have, I think, one particular style, but I think definitely like trying to tell a story. I mean, you can tell a story in one image, by using simple techniques like depth of field or whatever it is, in just one photograph. But yes, you're telling a story because you're capturing a wedding from the beginning of the day to the end of the day.
Yeah.
But, again, it just goes back to like, find your you, find what it is that makes you tick, that you love, that you want to do, but really strive to break out of that mold. If you can honestly look at your work and say, yeah, my work kind of looks like everybody else's, well, then challenge yourself. Like, okay, what is it that makes me tick? What is it that I would love to shoot at a wedding if I, had the opportunity and nobody cared what I produced at the end of the day? Like, no matter, I could do no wrong,
Yeah. And where does gear fit into all this? Because that's the other piece of it, right? Because photographers are addicted to gear or have gear acquisition syndrome, and and I know you could take a manual camera from 1945 and understand f-stop, shutter speeds, ISO, and go shoot a wedding with it, probably, right? So
right.
how does that fit in?
That's a good tip too, like especially for new photographers, even if you're not new. The one thing that like I definitely saw in my career, and again, I started on film and medium format Hasselblads, so I had to know how to use a light meter and read the situation, and after a while, I know you've said this before, I could walk into a situation because we always shot 400 film, and I could look at the situation and go, okay, it's 125 at 5.6.
Yeah.
But because I did it so much, and I was always pretty close. I used to play a game, like I'd guess at the exposure, I'd take a meter reading, and I'd be pretty close. But the important thing is like knowing your camera, like that you can, and we always read articles about this, but that you could put your camera on manual and just go shoot. Like you don't put it on program or don't trust the technology, know how to use the technology, and then you can go back to trusting it if you want to for certain things. But I always say like the exposure triangle, right? Know the interrelationship of how aperture, ISO, and shutter speed work together, and that you can manipulate that, because once you can master that, then of course, like we said, we can break the rules. But once you know and you're confident in your technique, and you're confident even knowing how your camera works and how to make it work, but once you have 100% confidence in that, and you're not thinking about the camera settings and the buttons and how to do this, you'll open up a whole new world, because you'll be able to see what's in front of you and stop thinking about the buttons and the exposures and all of that.
Yeah.
And I saw that happen in my own career. I worked for 3 studios before I started my own business in January of 94. I shot my first wedding in January of 89. But it wasn't until about 2 years into about 4 years into the business, and 2 years into the second studio, where I sort of had that aha moment where I sort of realized, I know this stuff now, and now I can look at what's in front of me and stop focusing on, am I at the right exposure? Because remember, I was shooting film, so if you messed that up, so you had to be really exact. At least today you can look and go, oh, that exposure doesn't look great. Let me fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we didn't have nets back then, and it's yeah, I mean that's the analogy I like to draw sometimes is like driving a car, right? So if you understand how driving works and how cars operate, the brake is right there, the gas pedal is right there, you turn this thing and you go left or right, and those sorts of things. You can drive any car. Then it becomes about the destination. And in photography, if you understand how photography works and how light works, then the camera is irrelevant, because it becomes about the destination, which is the final image that you're trying to get. So how do people get out of the mindset, Robert, of being on that gear acquisition train, shooting mediocrity, shooting to the list? How do they get off of that train and into I'm an artisan, My paintbrushes are
Me
relevant.
too.
Yeah. Well, I know you're a Sony artist. And now everyone else knows Robert Evans. But if how do you get to that level? Being an artisan, not a Sony artisan, but how do you get to the level of mastering your art?
I think it's just practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, like Carnegie Hall.
Right. That you hear the 10,000 hour rule. You got to put 10,000 hours into something to be good at it. But I think that's what it is. It's just get out there and shoot, your friends, your family, your client, maybe when the pressure is not on, try those things, be vulnerable to make mistakes when it doesn't matter. And then, but just keep shooting and keep practicing. And
mileage.
So you get to that point. Yeah. I mean, it's getting yourself to that level. Go back to your driving analogy or even riding a bicycle, right? I mean, we all can, the people that can ride a bike can get on a bike right now and you don't think about that. But when you first started doing it, you had your training wheels on, you were nervous, or when you first started driving, you thought of like, okay, I got to turn my turn signal on and okay, I got to push the brake. And I mean, of course, now you get into a car, most of us that drive, and you don't even think about it. You think about the destination, just like you said. So that's how your photography should be. But that's come from hours and hours of driving or hours and hours of taking pictures. And another way to do that within photography, of course, I said go out and shoot your friends or whatever, is also take on a personal project. Yeah. Do something that you want to shoot. Like, I've always wanted to go shoot the Kentucky Derby, or I've always wanted to go shoot geese in Canada. Whatever it is that's your thing, try, take on that project and work at it to, make it happen. And I found when I've done personal project, a lot of times you do something that you take on as a personal project and you're passionate about it. And then actually work comes out of it. Yep. Because you've done that. Like somehow you make a new connection or somebody sees that picture and, oh my gosh, Robert's an amazing, goose photographer. And, Goose Digest calls you and says, I'm going to put you on the cover of my magazine. And,
why did geese pop into your head, man? Why did those?
Oh, we have geese here in Minnesota. So.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
But I mean, I want to use something that's so simple and random as that. It doesn't matter what your love or your passion is. That's another thing. If you like auto racing, go shoot auto racing. If you like to shoot sports, shoot sports. If you, even if it's kid sports, I shoot all my kid sports. I absolutely love it. Like, I always joke around and say that I'm, a wedding photographer with a minor in sports.
Nice.
But it's like, I'm a photographer. That's another thing. Like, I hate when people like categorize you. Oh, you're just a wedding photographer. No, I could probably outshoot most photographers at most things. Yeah. But I do specialize in weddings, and that's what I've done forever. I am good at shooting sports. I can shoot landscape. I love street photography, but I'm mostly known as a wedding photographer.
Yeah. Don't put me in a box. Don't put baby in a box. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Love it. Hey, let's switch gears. You have another project that you're working on. It's called The Pixel Show. And yes. People can get to it at youtube.com/thepixelshow. What is that about? That's a podcast? Is a YouTube show? What are we looking at?
YouTube show. Well, so as you know, because we've been friends for a long time, and Frederick and I share the same birthday. Most people don't know that.
That's right.
I think we are exactly the same age. We determined that I am a few hours older than you. Is that correct?
So you're definitely wiser. So
I'm Frederick's elder. So about 10 or so years ago, I had a show called photographymentor.com. It wasn't really a show. It was more of like a website that you went to. It was a membership site. And we created video. It's a little similar to like what Creative Live was, but where we weren't live, but we'd shoot content, we'd put it up there. It was subscription, so you could pay for 6 months, a year, and we'd put up new content every week. Anyway, I did that with a business partner of mine. We did that for a couple of years, and then the economy crashed in 2008, and we had to stop, put money into it, and so I got away from it. And I really missed educating. As a Sony artisan, I speak on the Sony stage. I talk. I do workshops. I've done workshops. Getting back more into that a little bit, but I really wanted to get back on the education thing. So 10 years later, it's a different world. Like, okay, well, I could create my own YouTube channel like everybody else, and but at least I felt like I had something to give and something to offer. I have 30 years of being a professional photographer, and you're going to do it your own way. So the Pixel Show, I created, yes, it's a YouTube channel. It's a little bit of, studio and then on location. But I wanted to create something that I could shoot content, in the studio. I spent well over a year sort of figuring out what I wanted to do, how I wanted to put it together. I built a really simple set.
Let's see it, because you're sitting right next to it, right?
I showed you, right? So
yeah, let's see it.
Let's see it. There it is.
Look at that.
There's the set, the cameras.
That's killer. That is killer. I love it.
Little garbage.
It looks like the transporter room on the Enterprise.
Yeah, and I can change, of course, the light colors and all of that. But so that's the set. We started filming probably right around the beginning of the year, and then just a month or two ago, my wife decided we needed a new house, so we bought a new house. I had to rebuild the set, and but I do have about 7 episodes up, and I have one of course my episode that's doing the best has like 4,000 views, but that's because I got the new 135 1.8 about a week before it came out, and went out and did a bridal shoot in the snow here, and it's pretty cool. You want to go on there, watch that one, and it gives you an insight to the lens. But and then I have like other show episodes or concepts that I do. So one of my favorite things, and one of the big topics on the show, is one of the things that I talk about too when I teach, is called The Power of Simple. And basically what I'm teaching you is how to make your images more powerful by doing less. And some of the things, the segments of The Power in Simple are compositionally. So we talk about depth of field, we talk about motion blur, which isn't really composition, right? That's different. Rule of thirds, things like that. But basically I take 6 images, I show you the 6 images, I show you why they fit into that example, rule of thirds, depth of field, nice. Middle ground, background, foreground. And so those are all going to be consistent. There's just going to be 6 images. I try to keep those shows to about 10 minutes so the content's quick, but you can watch those. And ultimately, once I have enough followers, I'm going to start doing photo contests. And when I do the contest, I don't alienate people and say, oh, send me your best wedding image, because not everybody's obviously a wedding photographer, right? They're going to be based on the principles of Power of Simple. So I'd say, all right, this month's contest, I want you to send me your best image of rule of thirds, right? Doesn't matter what you shoot, landscape, astro, underwater, whatever. You just send me that in, have people send in images. We'll probably pick the best 10. I'll get another photographer on the show with me, just like we're doing. Maybe we talk about those 10 images, and then we'll pick the 3, and I'll get some good products and giveaways like media cards from Sony, and ultimately as we go on, the prizes will get better, cameras, lenses, and all that stuff.
That's cool. That is cool.
Yeah, so it'll be based around the Power of Simple, and really it's like just teaching there's so many people that talk, like you mentioned, talk about gear and lenses. And yes, I'm a Sony artisan, and we are going to talk about Sony stuff. But I don't want you to not come to the show because you shoot Canon and Nikon. That's okay, because we're going to talk about photography principles, but you just may hear a lot about Sony cameras and lenses.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about video. That's why I named it the Pixel Show. I didn't want it to be photography. So my business partner is a videographer and shoots for the Vikings and the Minnesota Wild and shoots for the news. And so he has a good video background. We're going to talk about media, storage and media cards, and anything that I can relate pixels to, we'll get to it. Another episode you can see up right now is an episode called I Wish I Took That, where I, just as you might think, I pick 6 or 7 images from different photographers around that I admire and that I like, and I talk about why I like it, what's interesting about it. We talk about some Power of Simple principles based on those images. But it's just a way to, I don't want the show to be, of course, all about me. Yes, I'm the host and I do it, but there's so many great photographers out there. So it's a way to sort of open up your eyes to other photographers, other people's work, other genres of photography besides, our own little world of, I'm a wedding photographer and I only look at all sorts of photography. And I need to be inspired, right? I need to be encouraged and find work that wow, that's so great. This guy's such an amazing street photographer. I wish I shot that picture because it's so beautiful.
Yeah. You gotta come on TWiP and come on the main show and talk about that stuff. Because it's
this isn't the main show. I'm only on the side show.
Yeah, no, you're in the basement right now. You're in the basement we call it the veal box. So
okay. The little shed.
It's a little shed. It's a little shed. Now we need
Now
calls
all the-
from PETA
now.
now.
All the vegans are gonna hate you.
Vegans and PETA are coming after me with pitchforks. No, this is cool. The Pixel Show. So youtube.com/The Pixel Show. You guys are working on the website. That'll be up soon. So yeah. that's killer.
For the
man.
website, I mean, I don't care. You could go there right now. It's thepixelshow.com, but I'm working on, just like Frederick does, like we put episodes and then you put your content on the website, but I'm not a web developer, or, I know WordPress a little bit, but I'm developing that. But we have an Instagram. It's The Pixel Show, Twitter, The Pixel Show, YT, YouTube. We have a Facebook page. And I'm going to also start doing, like right now we've recorded stuff, and I'm sort of committed to trying right now just to be consistent to put one episode up a week. To start, we'd like to obviously get to do more, 2 or 3 maybe, but also do some live shows because I have the ability, like a lot of people today, to stream live.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of just wrapping my head around what I want to do with the live streams. But again, they're going to be quick. Maybe we'll talk about a news story, photo of the day, and we'll talk about maybe a photo tip, something like that, and then possibly answer questions live.
You should consider what we're doing on the TWiP main show is a hybrid format where it's partially live and partially recorded. Like this interview will be likely inserted into a live show. So we'll be talking, and then I'll say, hey, and I had a chance to talk to Robert Evans about the homogenation of wedding photography. Let's watch that interview, and we'll roll out, then come back on live again and do Q&A about this interview. Right.
You'll have to tell me more about that. Well, and just so you guys know, Frederick and I have been friends, but he's been very helpful and instrumental in sort of guiding me into doing this. I mean, he said, "Oh, get this mic, buy this, Premix 3 voice recorder to mix your audio." And even talking about the website, he's like, "Well, my website's built on this WordPress platform, but if I were you, I'd build it on Divi, which is what I've kind of jumped into." And just guiding, very helpful. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, man. It's like, there are no secrets, there's no like, hey, I'm not going to tell Robert how to do this stuff because he's going to take my audience. I think it's a giant ocean.
There's so much to share.
Yeah, it's a universe. It's a universe of content out there. Okay. So let's wrap this up. If people want to, hire you as a wedding photographer, assuming that you have availability, and B, otherwise connect with you online or see some of the stuff that you're doing for Sony with the Sony Artisan program, what's a good location to keep up with you at?
All right, we'll start with me because I'm most important.
Of course. At least on this particular shot that I have you on.
Right. RobertEvans.com is my website. Kind of that website is geared towards destination travel weddings because I do travel. I'll shoot your wedding anywhere in the world or any state that you live in, and travel to you and do that. If you want to find out more about myself or any other Sony artisans, you can go to alphauniverse.com. There's a ton of great content on there, photography articles. Again, yes, it's a lot of Sony related, but you can learn stuff whether you shoot Sony or not. You can learn about the other artisans and what they do. I'm one of about 40 or so artisans. And my Instagram for personal Instagram is @RobertEvans. You can find me on Facebook, and I don't tweet much, but I do have @RobertEvans at Twitter. And then of course the Pixel Show, like we've said, it's The Pixel Show on Instagram, The Pixel Show YT on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, The Pixel Show, thepixelshow.com. But yeah, go watch some episodes. I'm in a, like most hosts, hopefully I want to build the show around what, my listeners want, they'd like to hear about. So feel free to comment, subscribe, please. I'm building my subscribers. I'm only at about 60 right now, but I just kind of started. And like I told Frederick, my attitude with this show has been sort of like the Field of Dreams theme. If you build it, they will come. And I really enjoy doing it and giving back. And I want to make it something that's really cool. A little bit, it's a little bit more like a TV-ish show-ish.
Yeah.
So entertaining, as funny as I am. I'm not a comedian, but I'm real, and I'm going to tell you real and be real, and we're just going to have fun with it, and hopefully develop content that people want to see, and shows. We'll see if they like episodes that I put out, and if I don't, some episodes may get rid of. I may add, But just different segments on the show that, and do the live stuff and,
Yeah. Well, be careful with that field of dreams marketing. If you build it, they will come. I did an interview with Erin Babnick a couple of weeks ago, and I used that, and she corrected me. And she's like, well, technically in the movie, it's if you build it, he will come. So that's one person. Right. And you've already beat that by 59. So right. you need to, if you build it and market it, they will come. That's what you gotta remember.
So right now I'm concentrating on just getting some good content up and then, start, really doing your show. And this show is like the biggest, kind of like putting it out there that I've done so far.
Awesome.
But go watch some episodes, give me some likes, send some comments, talk about what you like, what you don't like, what you'd love to see. Yeah.
I love this. It's going to be a great show, man. I love you at the beginning of this. And, then we'll check in again. Well, we'll check in before this, but we'll check in again in like 6 months or a year and see where you were in contrast to this show, right? My
goal at the end of the year is 10,000.
10,000, nice. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah, 10,000. I mean, I think that's a modest goal, but it's not going to be super easy. But
yeah. No, you can do that. I did a show with Trey Ratcliffe a couple of weeks ago. You could get 10,000 tomorrow. You just go buy them from Fiverr.com.
Well, I don't want to do that.
You want real ones. Let's get real followers.
Authentically and yeah. And I'm looking forward to the contest thing. I figure once I get maybe up to about 500 people, I'll start in with photo contests and start doing that and getting people involved and then another thing that I want to do too, which will kind of coincide with photo contest, is an episode that I call, I haven't done one yet because it's sort of viewer participation, but I call 3 Stops Better, which is similar to the show that you do where you're like looking at images and critiquing. But, I want it to be positive, and I call it 3 Stops Better because I want to tell you what 3 things that I would do to it to make the existing image
I like
a little bit better.
Yeah, that's cool. That's going to be cool. Yeah, I'll have to have you on and sort of do a guest critique on the TWiP Pro Photo Critique. We'll do a 3-stop homage.
I did one with you, I think we did one. One episode. But yeah, I'd love to be. Anytime I can help you out, I'm there for you.
I love it. Robert Evans. Once again, your URL is?
For what, me? RobertEvans.com or The Pixel Show on YouTube.
There you go.
So I have to say there are a few Pixel shows, but again, like I told Fred, the reason I chose that name, I liked the name, and then when I looked at it on YouTube, there's a couple people using it, but they're not doing anything with it. But The Pixel Show is available for Instagram, for my website domain, for Twitter, for Facebook. So I use that name, and I'm just going to dominate that on YouTube.
Own it. Well, dominate it on YouTube and on Google so that you own everything. All right, Robert Evans, man. Thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure. And you're right. I am remiss in having you on the main show, our roundtable show. I will correct that and get you on ASAP.
That's right. I'll just get that Calendarly link.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. Yeah. Hey, don't be telling my secrets of how I get this stuff scheduled.
Well, it's right on the link when you send it. No secret. They're branding themselves.
I know. I love it. Cool, man. All right. Take care. We'll see you next time, man.
All right. Thanks, Fred.
Yep. Bye. This is TWiP.